Good morning. Good morning. Y'all got my peppermint tea. That's what I was doing, fixing my peppermint tea. How's everybody? Let me see. See who's brave enough to comment. Good morning, Yolanda. Good morning. Hey, Susie, I just love you. You are, remember, thank you. You are such an angel. You support everything I do. Thank you for being a member, one of the founding members of the channel. Oh, y'all, this fix to get good. My membership, building this conversation as we head into November. It's fixing to get good, y'all. Hey, I am Dorothy Burton, and I thank you. Hey, Renee, I love you so much. Yeah, can y'all tell I'm excited? I'm excited. I really am, because we got a lot of stuff going on, y'all. These people think they slick, but they're not gonna be sick enough, cause we're gonna be on top of it. I am Dorothy Burton. This is our Thursday morning conversation, the story behind the stories, where we look at the top 5 stories that are in the news, but not just in the news, but to have a conversation about them. I bring what I bring to the table, you bring what you bring to the table, and we're just gonna start having these building this community, this Thursday morning community. That has been my prayer. I know that's what God has gifted me to do, and I just thank God. I thank God for y'all. Ophelia, hey, thank you for being a member of the channel too, supporting my Substack. Y'all, I forgot about my Substack people. I'm supposed to be live on Substack, but I don't know how to do it. So they're gonna have to forgive me. My subscribers over there, I'm gonna have to send an apology. Y'all. Oh, y'all. This morning we're gonna talk about 5 things. We're gonna talk about oh, Jesus. Okay, we're gonna start with Dan Patrick. We're gonna start with our Lieutenant Governor, Dan Patrick. And as I have said on one of my videos this week, I thank God for the life of Dolly Parton and the way she showed us how to live, how to give, how to love. And it's just been such an inspiration to me. And it made me kind of think through some things, kind of think through how you want to be remembered. How are people going to remember you, and what are you doing going through life? Are you contributing to somebody else's life, helping make somebody else's life better? Or are you just here taking up space, time and space? God, yeah. So I thank God for her, and I thank God for you. So we're gonna get started, y'all. We're gonna get started with our Lieutenant Governor, Dan Patrick. I had mentioned this, I think, last week, or I did a video on it, about Dan Patrick wanting to ban these books. Now, it's 2,198. I think we talked about this. It's 2,198 books on the list that Dan Patrick wants to ban. One of the books on the list is Night. And if you are a reader and know anything about Auschwitz and Ali Wiesel wrote the book Night, and it just talks about him surviving the Holocaust. Well, that's one of the books that Dan Patrick says need to go. Now, this is the kind of censure that we're talking about. Let me share with you. Let me let you hear him in his own words, and then we're going to come back and talk about this, because not only, y'all, is it a matter of banning books, but he's also talking about knocking schools districts down a grade. Meaning, if your school district is an A, if they come in the state and say, okay, they go to your library, they say, see this book Night. That book is on that list. So Dan Patrick is saying that your school district ought to be bumped down a grade, a whole level, because there's a book that they find offensive in your library. Let me let you hear him, and then we're going to come back, because y'all, this is a conversation, and I want you to. I want to hear your thoughts too. So let's listen to our Lieutenant Governor.
School districts, be aware. Next session, if these books are not off the shelf, we will pass a law that will knock your grade letter down 1. So if you're an A school, you'll be a B. If you're a B, you'll be a C. If you're a C, you'll be a D. And an F, you can't go much lower than that to begin with. Maybe that's why you have an F school, if this is what's in your library. We are not going to have this filth and vulgarity and violence of graphic scenes of rape, of stories of teachers and students having a sexual affair, and it's in our school libraries. So we're going to put an end to this. I am disappointed that after we passed Senate Bill 13 last year, that the school districts, so many of them, are ignoring the law. It's the law, Mr. Superintendent, Mr. or Mrs. Librarian. It's the law. And we expect you to follow the law. So we're coming for the books. School districts, be aware. Next session, if these books are not off the shelf, we will pass a law that will knock your grade letter down 1. So if you're an A school, you'll be a B. If you're a B, you'll be a C. If you're a C, you'll be a D. And an F, you can't go much lower than that.
Yeah, I wanted to play that part twice because I want you to hear what this man is saying. Now, they get to decide. They get to decide what filth is and what the book is. Now, I want to go back to this book that just made the list. This book was approved by the Republican-controlled state Board of Education. And it's a book about the Holocaust, about a survivor of the Holocaust. And it's been approved for 8th graders. So it talks about a genocide. It talks about anti-Semitism, and it was approved by the Anti-Semitism Advisory Commission. It was approved by the Texas Holocaust. It was approved by, what's y'all's commissioner's name, Susan? Morath, Mike Morath. It was approved by him. But this week, this book got on the list to be banned of the 2,198 books that Dan Patrick says are offensive. Now, I don't know how much more we can dumb down our schools. I don't know. So the question for the conversation, y'all, is this. I wrote down the question because y'all look. This is just not me talking, but I wrote down the question. Protection versus education. Can we teach children honestly about evil, about things like the Holocaust, about things like slavery? Can we teach students that while shielding them from the descriptions of evil, what he calls evil, what he calls nasty, what he calls offensive? We are entering into a very dangerous territory in this state. Not only are they dismantling our public schools, now they want to go back, and if a school has in its library a book that's part of this 2,198 books that they have deemed profane, even though a lot of these books have been approved by the Republican-controlled school board, they're still going to knock the school district down a grade. Make it make sense to me. So I want to hear from y'all, teachers, people who are in the school district. That's my number 5. And I just think it's horrible. And when I saw that Knight, I want you to Google Knight. When I saw that Knight had made the list, and one of my friends sent this to me too, I couldn't believe it, because we're making religious dummies out of our kids. But their religion. Y'all, I'm thinking about doing an online gathering of this community before November, well before November, to talk about voting, to talk about the issues, to talk about what the real issues are, not the politicized one, not the ones from the Democrat, not the one from the Republican, so that people can understand and hear from themselves what the issues really are and what's at stake. And if you're like me, I mean, I'm an empty nester. My kid graduated from Duncanville High School, long gone, ain't coming back, but I could be fine, fat, and happy. But I know that there are other children in generations to come that are going to be impacted by what we do today in this state. And to see the kind of police state, Zionist state, Christian nationalist state that they are trying to build, and they have a long leeway on already. I'm telling you, whether you have children or not, all of us should be actively participating in knowing what's going on with our schools, with our public schools. Because see, let me tell you one thing. I've said this before. Y'all know I say some crazy stuff. They say sound crazy, but it always be true because I just, like doctors and nurses, they go to school for this stuff. I've been to school for this stuff. I've been in public office. I've been in the rooms. They were talking about this 10, 15 years ago. And what was the discussion 10, 15 years ago? The discussion 10 to 15 years ago, 20 years ago, I even go back to the late 90s, the mid to late 90s. Y'all know what the discussion in the rooms were then? That Texas was going to be a majority Hispanic state. That was nowhere on nobody's radar. Texas, every city at the time, Dallas County was still Republican. At the time, Texas was the Republican. Not only, oh God, I wish I could take y'all back in time. And as I have remembered and thought about what God exposed me to way back then, I didn't know what he was preparing me for. I remember being in the rooms when they were redistricting, the conversations, the laughter, the joking, how they would draw around people's homes to draw them out of the district. They did Glenn Rep like that. That's how, what's her name? Yvonne Davis is in office today. Glenn Rep, who was a Republican, used to have that seat. They drew Glenn Rep out of the district. And of course, the district flipped Democrat. But back in the 90s, the late 90s, the talk then was that Texas was going to be a minority Hispanic state. Now, keep in mind, how did they know that? They looked at the birth rate because Parkland was delivering at that time about 14 to 15,000 babies, Hispanic babies, and they were young. The mothers were young. So y'all remember, if you remember the biblical story of Moses, how Pharaoh said, wait, these Hebrew women are having babies way too fast. They having more babies than the Egyptian women. So that's why the edict went out to kill the male babies. Y'all remember that? See, that's Bible, but it's true. And that it reminds me of that. Because the Egyptians saying, wait a minute, the Hebrews are having way too many babies, and it's going to be more than them than there are of us. That's what Texas decided back in the 90s, that there are going to be more of them than there are of us. So the plan was put into place way back then. Yeah. And now look where we are today. Texas is a majority minority state. Texas is majority Hispanic, just like they said it would back in the 90s. Texas has more Black people in the state of Texas than any state in the union. I've said it before, more than Alabama, more than Mississippi, more than Georgia. Texas has the largest Black population. I think Florida is second. So the things that we're seeing, y'all, is fear. The gerrymandering, what we're seeing now, what can go in schools, what can't go in schools, what can be taught in schools, the dismantling of the public school system. All of this is part of a puzzle, and all of the pieces have come together. The last piece is the public school system. Yeah, that's why we're seeing such attack on our public school system, because the goal is they got to get these white kids out of these public schools, let them with these public schools. So they're going to do everything they can to make the public schools fail. But the people that's paying for the public schools are the taxpayers. I know it sounds crazy. I know it sounds like some out of George Orwell, but I'm telling you, that's the truth. And that's the plan. And that's why we're seeing such a fight. And then you get Negroes talking about they're not going to vote. Okay. Hispanics talking about they're not going to vote. Okay. They depend on you not voting. Yeah. So the question about these books, this is part of it. So what they want to do is dismantle the public school system because they know whites will more likely, can afford private education, private Christian schools, private religious schools than blacks and Hispanics. But that's what the public school system is, see? So it's like rescue our white kids up out of these public schools. Give them money, give them vouchers, give them whatever they need, and then at the same time dismantle the public school system, because what's left in the public school systems are black and brown kids. Hello, somebody. Y'all ain't saying nothing, but I'm telling you that's the plan, and the plan is in effect. Yeah. Okay, that's number 5. The books. You see how Dan Patrick said it? You see how he said it? You see how he said it? That's another attack on the public schools. How in the world can you lower a school district whole grading because you don't happen to like Night, a book about the Holocaust, a book that a man wrote surviving the Holocaust? How can you justify that? But that's where we are. Yeah. So the fight, you heard him say. Now see, you heard how arrogant he was. He said, if y'all don't do this, we're going to get legislation passed next year to lower your grade level. How does he know they're going to get it passed? Well, because they count on, number one, dickering around with these voter records like I told y'all they were going to do back in December. And number 2, they count on Hispanics and they count on blacks not voting. See, it's more Democrat registered voters in Texas than Republican. They know that. Y'all, it's a numbers game. It's a numbers game. And they have looked at the numbers. They know the numbers. We don't know the numbers. I keep telling you what the numbers are, but they know the numbers. Yeah. More registered Democrats than Republicans. But he says with such assurance, if y'all don't do this, then we're going to, and that's the kind of government, y'all, we're going to live under. That's the kind of government regime that we're living under. I was part of it forever. I ain't proud of it, but I thank God that because I get it. And I know where they're coming from. And I know the code language. When they say this, I know they really mean this. So, yeah, he's so arrogant. We're going to get legislation passed. Now think about that, your school. Because when people move to cities, when corporations move, and see, they're going to be cutting their own throat. But when corporations move families, when people move to different cities and communities, what do? The first thing, if they have kids, they're going to look at their school district. And they're going to look at what kind of school, what kind of rating that school district has. Am I right about it, teachers? Real estate people? Let me get to the real estate people, because when they are selling homes, when they are selling communities, one of the selling points is the school district, especially if they are young families, because they want to know what kind of schools their kids are going to be attending. Now, real estate, parents want to know how their schools are rated. Dan Patrick is saying that this could be an A school, but if a book is in the library that they don't like, that don't meet their requirement, they're going to bump that school district down from an A to a B, not because of math scores, not because of reading scores, but because there happens to be a library in the book in the library that they find offensive. What kind of sense does that make? They don't care about dickering with other people's lives. They don't care about that. What they care about is control and power. So if a school district is actually, you look at a school district in Texas now, if things go the way the Republicans wanted to go in November, and they passed this law as he said they would, never mind that they just passed Senate Bill 13 last year that gave school boards, local school boards, the authority to approve books after the books have been approved by the state. Never mind that. So now they got to pass another law. You heard him say it. So if you're looking at a school district and that school district is rated a B, that school district really is an A school district. But because the state found an offensive book, they bumped that school district down to a B. How fair is that to the students? How fair is that to the teachers? How fair is that to the community? That's why we come on here, y'all, on Thursday morning, because what you read is the headlines. I tell you the story behind the headlines, what this really means and what they're really doing. And the impact that it's going to have on you, the impact it's going to have on your family, the impact it's going to have on your community, the impact it's going to have on your schools. Y'all, but you heard what the man said, and he is dead serious about it. Number 4, this data center backlash. Now, y'all, we talk about this every week. Now, the governor has implemented a freeze for an audit so that they can study it, because those rural people got on his ass. That's why, only reason why Greg Abbott halted the expansion of these data centers. But the most interesting thing is this. Now, Hood County, I think it's Hood County, is still waiting for the Attorney General's opinion to see if this data center can go in Hood County. I think it's something like 7,500 acres. They have been waiting for 6 months for Dan Patrick to render a decision whether this data center can go forward or not. Dan Patrick. Paxton. They've been waiting for Paxton to render a decision from the AG's office. They've been waiting about 6 months. Paxton was slow in coming out with his data center plan. See, they were not going to do anything. If you say data, if they weren't going to do anything with these data centers until these rural communities started getting in their face. They were not going to do a thing, nothing, because Ken Paxton, when he was in the Senate, now it took him forever after Talarico had done his plan, after Gina Hinojosa had done their plan for data centers. Ken Paxton just last week released his, and is very close to Talarico's. But the thing about Paxton is this. Paxton in 2013 was part of the legislature that approved this 3.2, and I want you to get this number, this $3.2 billion exemption, tax exemption for these data centers. Yeah. These data centers promised, lured here by Abbott, Patrick, and Paxton. I call them the unholy trinity. They lured these data centers here, promising them unlimited resources, i.e. water, unlimited space, i.e. land, and $3.2 billion in tax abatements. Excuse me. While they were wheeling and dealing with these data centers, promising these rural areas, promising them the land from these rural areas, these rural people didn't know nothing about it, promising them water, these rural people didn't know nothing about it, and promising them tax breaks up to $3.2 billion. The rural people didn't know anything about it. Abbott didn't say anything about it. Paxton didn't say anything about it because they all voted for it. But once those rural people start getting in Greg Abbott's face, and he saw the polling numbers. See, everything with them comes down to polling numbers. They really don't care about people. They do not care about people. They care about money, and they care about polls, and they care about winning at all costs. So when those rural people, those farmers and those ranchers started bucking up against Abbott, Abbott stayed silent for a long time. He didn't say anything. So now he has put a halt while they do an audit of these data centers, an audit. I guarantee you that is just a stopgap measure until after the election. Because after the election, if they win, they get back in office, game on, these data centers going to have the run of the place, the run of these rural areas, the run of our water resources, just like they were before. Yeah. Whenever you hear a government, a local government, I don't care if it's city, I don't care if it's county, I don't care if it's state. Whenever you hear them say they're going to put a hold on something because they have to do an environmental study or they have to do an audit. That's just a pause until the threat is over. Once the threat is over, game on. So I'm just telling you, rural people. Listen, y'all can be like them farmers and them cattle ranchers. Y'all can be like that if you want to. Believe Abbott and them. They ain't stopped these. They have not stopped these data centers. They have them on pause, Greg Abbott says, until they do an audit. In the meantime, Hood County is still waiting on Paxton to give them the okay or no to proceed or not proceed with this data center that's planned there. And I said, I think from memory, I think it's like 7,500 acres. But both of them on both sides. Now, the PAC that is connected to Talarico, they got data center money too. Paxton has like $400 and something thousand to him that's been donated to him. So both sides, y'all, got this money tied up from these data centers. But the exception being on the Republican side, since they are in control of the government, they actually have the power to make it work for the data centers. Talarico ain't got no power. I mean, he's a state legislator. He's running for the Senate, and his PAC can get contributions just like Paxton. He ain't got no power. Paxton got power. Abbott has power. Dan Patrick has power. They have the power. Yeah. So what do y'all think these data centers are going to do? That's been promised this $3.2 billion tax break. They have moved here. They have bought land. They have their plans. They are going forward. Some of them are already on the ground and running. But since it's election year and these people got in Greg Abbott's face, he's doing an about face. So we'll see. But the further this goes along, let me see. The revolt, let's see. San Antonio is considering restrictions. Austin is moving forward toward regulation. Fort Worth is fighting a proposed I thought I read it wrong. Fort Worth is fighting a proposed $10 billion facility. Yeah, $10 billion. Fort Worth is fighting against a $10 billion data center facility. So Abbott has paused new grid approvals pending, y'all, the audit. Pending the audit. Now, and look, don't look for that audit. Ain't nothing gonna come from that audit between now and November. It's gonna be after the election. Yeah. Number 3, Talarico wants Ken Paxton to reveal sealed testimony. When his sealed testimony open. Now, I don't know if y'all heard about this story. This is really, really hot. This almost made my number 1, but it actually made my number 3 because Ken Paxton, y'all, let me show you this. Then I'm gonna come back. Let me show you this. It's funny. It's kind of funny. You probably already seen it. Let me see. Y'all, this right here. Look, this is who Ken Paxton is. It's funny, but it's really who he is.
$153,000 a year and owns 15 homes. Nobody knows how, especially not him.
How many of these can I claim as my primary residence?
His employees respect him so much, 8 of them personally called the FBI. He fired 4. It only cost Texas $6 million. He united Texas so well that Republicans and Democrats voted together.
Stop clapping, you fucking moron.
To impeach him. He once held a press conference about his scandals. He answered 0 questions and set his personal best in the 40-yard dash. His wife filed for divorce on biblical grounds, so he honored America's 250th birthday in London, the country we specifically left. A Texas town asked him if they could pause the data centers. 6 months and $450,000 later, he's still deciding. He is the most corrupt politician in the world.
I don't always need a lawyer, but when I do, even he votes for the other guy. Stay loyal, my friends. Dan?
153,000.
Oh, it's funny. It's funny, y'all. It's funny, y'all, but it's true. So Talarico now has requested the sealed documents to be unsealed in this case that Ken Paxton had involving litigation with a mineral assets company. Y'all, he's always into something. Well, when they took his deposition, according to the Wall Street Journal, and I want y'all to look this up because this is hot. It just came out to like late last night or today. He pleaded the fifth, I think 90 times. No. He said he couldn't recall. So they asked him questions under oath about his association with this Unity Resources, which is a mineral assets company. So he, in essence, pleaded the fifth 90 times. I don't know. I'm not saying anything. Now, I don't want to say that this is what Talarico says, Paxton says. That's just the record. So Talarico is saying the voters of Texas need to know these records need to be unsealed as to what happened, what kind of deal did our attorney general make with this mineral assets company. Because the attorney general, when he was deposed, he said he could not recall. They asked him 90 times. 90 times he said, I do not recall. I do not recall. I do not recall. So Talarico is saying that the people of Texas deserves to know what is up with this. So the question I want y'all to think about, when somebody has been like Paxton, just involved in scandal after scandal after scandal, and the voters keep electing him anyway, when does the past stop mattering? When does it not matter anymore? And apparently to a number of Republicans, none of this matters. But this was from 2019 and 2022. So this has not been that long ago that this litigation involving Paxton with this company that Talarico is saying the records should be unsealed because the people of Texas need to know. So Paxton is saying no. So should voters, let me ask you this, should voters be able to see a candidate's, what a candidate said under oath? It's kind of like Trump pleading, pleading the fifth. So in this kind of race, do voters of Texas deserve to know, or do they need to know what was said under oath? In this case, before sending somebody like Paxton, who has a very checkered past, and we don't know anything about this recent thing, about this recent case where he pleaded the fifth 90 times, in essence, that he said he didn't recall. So we'll see. That's up in Collin County. It was filed in Collin County. So that's the latest with him, and that's the latest scandal. So do we need to know, or does it matter? Talarico is saying it matters, and the records need to be unsealed. He has called for them to be unsealed so that the people of Texas will know what it is Ken Paxton is hiding and doesn't want the public to know about his business dealings with Unity Resources, which is a mineral assets company. That's number 3. Number 2, y'all. Now, I hate to get into the religion part, but this is turning out to be, this election with Talarico and Paxton is turning out to be more than just political. It really isn't a campaign story anymore. It comes down to which Christianity do you believe? Talarico has not been shy about his faith at all. That's part and parcel of who he is, even in the legislature. But now they are attacking his faith and saying in essence that he's not the kind of Christian that he needs to be. Let me share this with you. And I'm going to share two clips with you. One is Dan Patrick saying at the convention, the Republican convention this spring, that Talarico is going to hell. Point blank, period. He's going to hell because he's not the kind of Christian. He's a fake Christian. He is not the kind of Christian that's acceptable. Look, that's the only way I can put it. He's not the kind of Christian that's acceptable. So, y'all, let's look at, first of all, let's look at this one. We're gonna look at what Dan Patrick said. Then I'm gonna show you a clip of Talarico and what Talarico, him being a pastor, him being trained as a pastor. This new curriculum, this Bluebonnet curriculum that we've talked about a number of times here, that's now law, that teachers are going to have to teach this Bible curriculum beginning in 2030. The Bluebonnet curriculum has already been approved for school districts, but it is not mandatory. School districts can or cannot adopt the Bluebonnet curriculum, which is a Bible-themed curriculum. The thing about it is, and we've talked about this, if the school districts adopt Bluebonnet, they get $60 extra per kid. And since the state has made sure that schools are cash strapped, the Bluebonnet Bible curriculum is a carrot, is a stick and a carrot. We're saying, the state is saying to school districts, okay, y'all don't really have to adopt the Bluebonnet Bible curriculum, but if you do, we'll give you $60 per student if you do. But the Bible curriculum that passed, that's part of the curriculum that's going to be rolled out in 2030, it is mandatory. It is mandatory. It is not, there are no exceptions. A parent can file an exception if they want to. It ain't going nowhere. It's like the 10 Commandments. They're there. They're being challenged in the court. But this Bible curriculum, I've said it, I've written an essay about it. And like I said, I am trained in theology. I hate this because it's not the purview, it's putting undue pressure on teachers. Because if a teacher is, and rightly so, Talarico brings this out in the clip that I'm going to show you. This curriculum, number one, is flawed because they went on advice from David Barton. And I've talked about David Barton here. He's a debunked Christian, a debunked historian. His book was pulled from the shelf by Christian publisher Nelson. What is it? Thomas Nelson, is that it? I think was pulled from a shelf because it has so many errors in it. But David Barton of Wall Builders is who the state has relied on heavily to help concoct this Bible curriculum that's now in the public schools that's going to be rolled out in 2030 that teachers have to teach. So if a teacher, and this is what gets them about Talarico. Talarico is bringing up valid points. So if a teacher is not a Christian and teaching the Bible curriculum, and if a student has a question that's biblically related, and if this teacher is not a Christian but is of another faith, is Jewish or Baha'i or Unitarian, if a student asks, I'm gonna let Talarico explain it. I'll let Talarico tell you out of his own mouth. And this is why they are so angry at him and questioning him, because Talarico is asking valid questions here. So I'm gonna show Talarico first, and then I'm gonna come back and show you what Dan Patrick says.
38 of the new Texas third grade curriculum, teachers are encouraged to play the Christian song "Away in the Manger" in their classrooms.
I mean, I'll have to take your word for it. I don't have it in front of me.
Does the new Texas curriculum encourage teachers to play songs from other religious traditions in their classrooms?
I don't know.
Is it true that on page 248 of the new Texas third grade curriculum, students learn that, quote, the Bible explains that Jesus rose from the dead 3 days after his death by the Roman authorities? Followers of Jesus visited his tomb and found it empty. An angel appeared and said, he has risen, and led them into the tomb. When the visitors entered the tomb, they found it empty.
I presume you are reading from the
I
instructional
am.
material, so I have to believe that that's in there, yes.
Okay. How do you believe teachers will respond to elementary school students when they ask how a human being can rise from the dead?
What we attempt to do is provide training and support to teachers so that as kids ask questions on any subjects that emerge in the lesson, that they can be equipped to handle those conversations.
Is it likely that a teacher, when asked about a religious question, now that we're teaching it in our curriculum, is it likely that the teacher will respond with their own religious beliefs simply because that's what they know? So would an atheist teacher tell their students that Jesus wasn't resurrected and that it's just a story? Or will a Catholic teacher respond based on their church teachings? Will a Presbyterian teacher respond based on their denomination's teachings?
I don't know whether that's likely.
Okay. Are you worried that if Texas public school teachers use this new state curriculum, those teachers will violate the Establishment Clause by teaching Bible stories in public schools?
No.
Then why does the bill at the bottom of page 5 explicitly give teachers who use this new curriculum immunity for violating the Establishment Clause of the United States Constitution?
Yeah, so I think one would posit that there's a variety of things that cause folks to have hesitation, and this is essentially meant to take that off the table.
I'm a former Texas public school teacher. I'm also a student at Austin Presbyterian Theological Seminary. And so I can tell you there is a difference between teaching and preaching. Under federal law, schools can teach the Bible as an academic text, but not in a devotional way. In other words, schools are not Sunday schools. It's hard to be different as a kid. If you're a Jewish kid going to Texas public schools, if you're a Muslim kid going to Texas public schools, if you're a Hindu kid going to Texas public schools, it's hard enough. Now their teacher is teaching Bible stories at the front of the classroom because some politicians here in Austin are forcing them to do so. Is it true that on page 238 of the new Texas third grade?
So those are the kinds of pointed questions that Talarico asks, because Talarico is trained in theology. So he's asking a very legitimate question. And to me, not to me, but the reality is what these Christian nationalists have done, Greg Abbott, Dan Patrick, the legislature. You see, the guy was stumbling and fumbling when Talarico asked him very legitimate questions. Jews do not believe in Jesus, that Jesus was the Messiah. They are still waiting for the Messiah. They certainly do not believe that Jesus was the Messiah who rose from the dead. They do not believe that. Their belief stops. They have the Torah. The New Testament is not part of their orientation. So Talarico was asking a very legitimate question. And it puts teachers, and I feel so bad for the teachers because teachers already have so much pressure on them. So if you get a Jewish teacher and the curriculum says that Jesus rose from the dead, like Talarico was saying, how can a human be raised from the dead? That Jewish teacher, they're going to be forced to choose between their belief and what they have to teach. And that's just not right, period. So Talarico brought up those very legitimate questions. And you see how the guy stumbled and fumbled, because it's not a matter of Jesus and God and love and all of it. It's not a matter of that. It's a matter of control. It's a matter of Christian nationalism. That's what it is. And to have these teachers, whatever faith they are, or of no faith, and that's what James Talarico was saying. How How can we put teachers in this position to do this? They're trained to be educators. They're not trained to be theologians. And teachers don't have to, their personal beliefs aren't conflicted with what they are required to teach, which is a curriculum, which is education. Now, Texas is putting these teachers in a position where they're going to be very conflicted. Because if the question comes, it gets asked because of this Bible curriculum, what is a Jewish teacher to say? What is even a Christian teacher to say? That's the kind of questions that Talarico has been asking. Not that he's been blasphemous, not that he's like they're trying to portray him. He's weird and has this weird thing. No, he doesn't. But let me share with you what our lieutenant governor had to say.
In 3 decades. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick has taken a lead role in the effort to circle conservative wagons and unify the Texas GOP. And yet, it was this declaration that drew headlines at the party's state convention.
It's James Talarico who decided to bring the Bible into this election. And let me tell you, that's not a Bible I've ever read. I've never seen so much blasphemy from anyone running for office. And let me tell you what, I'm going to pray for that guy, because when he loses the Senate race, if he campaigns against God as he's been doing, he's going to hell for sure. That's what we're up against.
Panel, Lieutenant Governor.
So, you see, Talarico didn't bring this. He didn't bring this into this race. They brought it into this race. Talarico has always been just Talarico. But since Talarico is theologically trained, Dan Patrick is not theologically trained. Greg Abbott is not theologically trained. Ken Paxton sure isn't theologically trained. Talarico is asking questions that a theologian would ask, as well as a public school teacher. Paxton has never been a public school teacher. Dan Patrick has never been a public school teacher. And Greg Abbott was raised by a public school teacher, but he had crazy and he done forgot all that. But he's never been a public school teacher either. But by Talarico having been a public school teacher, standing in front of the classroom and having to teach these kids and being trained in theology, he's just asking the question. And that's why I wanted to show what he said first. So what Talarico said first and the kinds of questions that he asked. So when you hear these religious Christian nationalist people like Ted Cruz, like Dan Patrick, say this boy is going to hell and this boy is doing blasphemy and all that. No, he's not. No, he's not. No, he's not. That's why I want you to hear what the kind of questions that Talarico be asking and the kind of things that Talarico says, because what Talarico says is based in theology. So he didn't bring this into this. They brought it into this. But what they are not accustomed to is somebody being trained who can come back on them and say, wait a minute, what about this and what about that? And what they don't understand is when they're putting the curriculum when they're putting this Bible curriculum in these schools, they are cheapening the kingdom of God. Because if you force a teacher who does not believe in the resurrection, and that is the central thing. And if you see what Talarico focused on the resurrection. Why did he focus on the question of the resurrection? Because that is the crux of the Christian religion. That is the crux of our faith, the resurrection of Jesus Christ. So that's why he asked that question. And you see how they stumble and fumble. So they hate him for it. That's why they hate him. Talarico is not confused. Many of us are not confused. They have thrown this Christian nationalism curriculum, political thing into these schools, half-baked, not thought out. And what they don't know and what they don't understand, even with the 10 Commandments, the requirement to hang the 10 Commandments and not the Beatitudes. In both of these instances, the curriculum, the Bible curriculum, and hanging the 10 Commandments, as Christian as they are ignorant, biblically ignorant. Because what they are doing is denying Jesus Christ, denying the Messiah. Because if they hang the 10 Commandments and not the Beatitudes, Jesus was the fulfillment of every last commandment. He was the fulfillment of the law. And the 10 Commandments was from God, vertical and horizontal, to do what? The same thing that Jesus said. The law can be summed up in one thing. He said, love your neighbor and love God and love your neighbor as yourself. And you hear Talarico saying that all the time. Where did Talarico get that from? Talarico got that from Jesus. Because Jesus said the sum of the law, meaning the 10 commandments, can be summed up like this: love God. The 10 commandments is vertical and horizontal. The first, 4, 5, or how we are to relate to God, how to love God. And then the remainder of them is horizontal, how we are to relate to one another. And that's loving one another, loving God and loving one another. That's what the 10 commandments mean, to break it down like that. So if they were going to hang anything, they should have hung the Beatitudes. And if they're going to teach anything and have teachers, requiring teachers to teach this up, what they are doing is denying the deity of Jesus Christ. That's the crux of what Talarico was getting to. And that's why they are so upset. They're upset and they're angry and they're spiteful and hateful, just the same way the Pharisees were, the same way the Sanhedrin was, the same way. That's why they got so upset with Jesus, because Jesus upset their apple cart. Jesus came teaching and preaching a different gospel. They ain't like it. So they call him Beelzebub, Lord of the Flies. That he was from all this stuff. The same thing they're doing. That's the same thing they're doing in Talarico. So when y'all hear that stuff, that's why I had to find the right clip to show you. That's why they get so angry at him, because he comes back on them like that. Yeah. Yeah. And all this religiosity, they are denying Christ. And and you hear them, they don't never talk about Jesus Christ. They don't ever talk about the kingdom, ever. That's why you know. So the question is, when does legitimate theological disagreement become political gatekeeping? And what we're seeing in Texas with this Christian nationalist agenda with these public schools is political gatekeeping, I think. I can't wait to hear from y'all. Okay, we're still under an hour. And the number one story. The number one, y'all, is the Texas, this voter suspension. Now, y'all know that I told y'all back in December, I said, y'all, Abbott gave over our voting rolls. And that was the whole thing with Minnesota. That was the whole thing with Trump sending ICE and these troops to these states, threatening these states. Even Abbott, y'all remember when Abbott sent the National Guard, our Texas National Guard, remember he did that? Sent them to other states? What Trump said and what he tried to do was force these states to hand over their voting rolls. The states that willingly handed over their voter rolls, you can imagine, were states led by Republican governors, just like Abbott. Abbott was one of the first ones back in December. I think December 18th. I think I remember the date. I started talking about that then. And so the states that didn't hand over their rolls, y'all, what did Trump do? He sent the National Guard. He sent ICE. He sent all of these to try and intimidate these states that wouldn't hand over their voter rolls to the DOJ. That's what a lot of that was about. And it's a shame that 2 young people lost their lives. Yeah, that was what y'all notice how that went away. That was what that whole thing was about, to force these states to hand over their voter rolls. The states that sued won. The states that rolled over were states led by Republican governors. So they got those rolls. And then they tried to intimidate other states into handing over their rolls, and it didn't work. And so these states filed suit against the DOJ, and the states that filed suit and resisted, they won. So they didn't get their rolls, but they got ours. So now here we are in August, and I kept saying, wait until August, because it went from us, from the state to the DOJ purge, DOJ sent it back to the state purge, state sent it back to the DOJ purge, and it goes back to the state for the last time for the final voter rolls to be set in August, just like I told you. So this 1.2, let me make the delineation here. This 1.2 million Texas voters that are in suspension, that does not mean that they can't vote. That doesn't mean that they've lost their right to vote, but they have been flagged. That their address, it could be something that the address that's on their voter registration card no longer exists, or they no longer live there. Something having to do with that. So it's in suspension. They have not lost their right to vote. What I'm more concerned about is that Texas recently flagged, along with these 1.2 million, Texas has recently flagged over 2,000, almost 3,000 voters as potential non-citizens. Now, remember I told you that when they sent these rolls to the DOJ ran these rolls through the SAVE tool, the same tool that they use to filter out non-citizens. That's what they sent our rolls through. Citizens. I mean, they filtered out the voter rolls through the SAVE tool with the same thing they use to filter out illegal immigrants. Same thing. So now they've come back in Texas is saying, okay, they're 1.2 million on suspension, which means we found something wrong with their address. They've either changed their address or they're no longer registered at that address, but they need to fix this. And that's 6%, roughly 6% of Texas's 18 million registered voters. Now just think, it's 1.2 million that have been suspended because they have a questionable address. All I can tell y'all is this, is what I've been saying months and months and months. Make sure whatever you write down matches every record that you have. If you use your initial to register. If you use your whole name, use your whole name, because they're looking for anything to disqualify you from voting, us from voting. Now back to these that have been flagged that I'm more concerned about. The suspension ones, people need to check. People need to check if they've moved. If they re-registered when they moved, they need to. You need to. You haven't lost your right to vote. You're just suspended. You're just like suspended. But they have flagged 2,724 voters as being non-citizens. So when you are flagged as being a non-citizen, that means what? You can't vote. However, county officials and the federal database with these 2,742 voters, they don't agree. The Fed is saying that these are potential non-citizens. Well, county officials have discovered that some of those people had already supplied their citizenship documentation to DPS. So now the Secretary of State, this new Secretary of State that Abbott just appointed, the Secretary of State is now cross-checking DPS records to make sure that these almost 3,000 Texas citizens who have been flagged as non-citizens, but county officials have said no, they've discovered that some of these people have already supplied their citizenship documentation to DPS. So if they can knock out these 3,000 people, even though the county has said, now the county officials where these people are, they haven't said that every last one of them have already supplied their citizenship documentation in the cross-checking to DPS records. They're saying some of them have. So what does that do to the rest of them? Who have not supplied their documentation to DPS? Well, they're not going to be able to vote, period, because they're going to be flagged as non-citizens, even though they are citizens. See, this is the kind of thing that we're dealing with in these voter records. And that's why I wanted to make the difference between those 1.2 million that have been suspended and the now almost 3,000 who have been flagged and saying they are non-citizens, even though some of them have supplied citizenship documentation to DPS. Those are the ones that are likely going to get kicked out of the system and won't be allowed to vote because they're going to be deemed as non-citizens. But the others, check your record. Check your record, check your address, check your initial, check everything. I'm more concerned about the almost 3,000, because all of them have not supplied their documentation. And if they have not supplied their documentation, and the Fed is saying, y'all ain't citizens, they're not gonna be able to vote. And in a race this close, y'all, it don't take that many people to knock out of not being able to vote. And that's what the state is doing. So how do we maintain, the question for us, how do we maintain accurate voter rolls without making eligible citizens collateral damage? Because that's what this will do. they're eligible. If they're collateral damage, oh well, it works out for the Republicans. Yeah. So that's the 5 things, y'all. That's the 5 stories behind the stories. We'll see. We will see. But yeah. So let me see if y'all have comments. This question, y'all. It's supposed to be a conversation. So y'all, I done all talking. So I didn't ask y'all the question. Let's see. Your point is so powerful about their sheep. They are. Because they don't care about God. They don't care about Jesus. They care about power. It's about power and it's about control. That's what this is about. It's not about Jesus. It's not about the kingdom. And that's what gets them about Talarico, because Talarico is saying the same thing, because Talarico is trained. And Talarico is saying, nope. Nope. Let's see. Well, if Barton is the standard, then just turn everything over to the 10-year-olds. He is. Y'all know David Barton. I want y'all to Google David Barton. Google David Barton while we're on here and y'all see what I'm talking about. David Barton Wall Builders. David Barton used to be, I think, vice president of the state Republican Party. David Barton swears that America was founded as a Christian nation. It wasn't. That's why he's been debunked by Thomas Nelson. When Thomas Nelson pulls his book, The Jefferson Lies was the name of the book, if I remember correctly. But y'all Google me and correct me if I'm wrong. But I think that was the name of the book, The Jefferson Lies. And Thomas Nelson pulled it because you had legitimate historians reading it, reviewing it, and they go, this ain't true. This ain't true. This not true. But David Barton is the chief historian and biblical historian that the state used to develop this Bible curriculum. And you get somebody like James Talarico who knows the Bible, and he comes back on them. Like I said, that's why I wanted you to hear him in his own words. The kinds of questions that he asked, they're not blasphemous, they're not crazy, they're straight Bible, they're straight theology, and that's why they were fumbling and stumbling, and he embarrassed them because they could not answer the questions. Because it's not about Jesus, and it's not about the kingdom. It's about them taking control. Yeah. Talarico is the best thing to hit Texas since the Cowboys championship. I don't disagree. So you do know that he has Ted Cruz. I mean, Ted Cruz is, a PAC associated with Ted Cruz. What's the name of it? Truth and Courage. I think that's the name. I have so much information in my head. But I think that's the name of the PAC that's associated with Ted Cruz, Truth and Courage. I think that's the PAC. Anywho, that PAC has chipped in almost $2 million to help Paxton. Because see, anybody giving money to Paxton. Paxton is y'all know who Paxton is. And so a lot of these big donors, and see, let me tell you why they're such in a quagmire when it comes to Paxton, because see, they're so religious. These West Texas billionaires and Renee and Susie know who I'm talking about. The Wilkes brothers, Dunn, they so Christian. A lot of them, both of them are pastors. They're billionaires. And they also they're Christian nationalists, and they also line up with Abbott. But how in the world can these religious billionaires give money and be associated with their church? They pastors and all that. Tim Dunn is a pastor. Ferris Wilkes is a pastor. And y'all see who's being very quiet, right? Y'all ain't heard nothing from Jeffries, downtown First Baptist. I ain't heard him. See, Jeffries endorsed Corning. Yeah. So Paxton has put them all in a pickle. They're in the Paxton pickle. I just thought of that. I'm brilliant, right? No, they're in the Paxton pickle, y'all. Because how can you be a pastor and be so religious and have your name endorsing Ken Paxton? I'm just asking. That's the quagmire they in. See, God will make a fool out of you every time. Yeah. So Paxton don't have all this money coming to him as John Cornyn would have. Because see, John Cornyn was squeaky. He'd been with his wife 40-some years, Paxton is a trollop. That's an old word. I mean, I probably ain't heard that word. That's what we used to call him in East Texas. She a trollop. That's a nice way of saying, he's a, So I just use trollop. While fake Christians have accountability moral standards and don't support criminals nor those who harm children. I'm telling y'all, that's exactly right. That's the quagmire that they're in. That's the quagmire that they're in. And it matters to people with the conscience and morals. Yes, thank you for answering that question. It should matter. And that's to show you these people don't have no conscience and they don't have no morals. It's about power. It's about winning at any cost. Let's see. Let me see. Don't want to get that one. Let's see. How can I get it? It was the mineral case. Somebody had a question about the mineral. We deserve full transparency, especially statements under oath, and it should be revealed before November. Yeah, it should be. That's what Talarico is saying. Y'all talking about that. Let me go back to it. That was the I almost made it my number 3. I almost made my number 1. Yeah, his sealed testimony regarding the Unity Resources Mineral Assets Company. And that was in 2019 and 2022, where he pleaded 90 times that he could not recall. Rural people are still having community meetings and raising hell. Yeah, they are. They are mad, Renee. Yes, they are. Right over here in Hood County. Hood County got 7,500 acres, and they're waiting for Paxton. But Paxton has accepted this over almost $500,000 from this data center, and Hood County has been waiting 6 months on a decision from the AG's office, and they can't get a decision from the AG's office, so they're just in limbo. Care about the poll. That's it. Polls, power, and position. Let's see. Susie said 3.2 billion. Yes, tax abatement, corporate socialism, but they don't see it that way. They do not see it that way. 3 years. Look, I think it was 3.5. Let me look at my thing. No, you're right. 3.2 billion tax abatement. That's our money. But that's what Greg Abbott gave these people to come here. $3.2 billion in tax abatements. And now, like I said, since the rural people, those rural voters are all up in their face, that's why I'm telling you, they have put this thing on hold, talking about an audit, because these people have moved here. These people have plans on the ground. These people have bought land. These people have done all this based on the word from Greg Abbott and Dan Patrick, Ken Paxton, 3.2 billion, because Ken Paxton was in the Senate in 2013 when they approved this abatement. They all did it together, y'all. That's why this audit that Greg Abbott is talking about, it is a pause. A pause. We're going to wait and see what the audit says. Yeah, they're going to wait until after the election. That's what that's about, rural people. Rural people, that's what that's about. Don't y'all get hoodwinked like these farmers and these cattle ranchers got hoodwinked. I'm just saying, I ain't saying nothing political. I'm just saying what the facts are. That they have this on pause so they can audit. Don't you think before promising $3.2 billion in abatement that they would have done the audit beforehand to figure out how much it was going to cost Texas taxpayers and how much it was going to cost in land and resources to the people that would be most impacted by it? Don't you think they would have done that? They didn't. They did not. No, they didn't. And they would not have said a thing if the rural people hadn't gotten wise to what they were doing. And they saw their land and they saw their water going away. And some of them have said even their livestock have problems reproducing because of the sound that comes from these huge data centers. Yeah, that's why we're here on Thursday morning, y'all. At the same time, therefore, a book full of rape, murder, infanticide, genocide, all kinds of atrocities on school kids. I love the Bible, but we have to be honest about it. I love it too. I'm telling you, we do. We do. And to me, as a Christ follower, before they made religion an issue, the Christian Coalition, the focus on the family, the moral majority, the promise keepers. And I'm going back to the 80s and 90s, and some of y'all on here, y'all know what I'm talking about. Before those organizations made religion front and center in politics, nobody knew and nobody cared what a politician's religious beliefs were, because it didn't matter, because the law was the law. And if it was something that a Christ follower or a Christian office holder had issue with, I'm telling you, because I was an office holder myself for 4 terms, they either just wouldn't vote on it, or they would make a statement and say, I'm against this, but that's personal to me, but I know that I represent a constituency that this will help, so they will vote for it. Religion, it never was intended to be, I put it like this: our faith guides us as individuals, and that's what we're going to be held accountable for. We're not going to be held accountable for how we govern. We're going to be held accountable for how we govern ourselves, because that's what it's about. Our faith is supposed to guide us, not govern others. Now I say it again, our faith is supposed to guide us, not govern others. They have this thing totally flipped around and totally backwards, because it's not about Jesus. It's not about God. It's not about truth. It's about power. It's about control. And that's why they had such problems with Jesus, the Jewish leaders and the Pharisees and the Sadducees, because what we're seeing today is the Pharisees and the Sadducees in the person of these white Christian nationalists. That's who they are. That's who they are. So you have somebody like a Talarico and somebody like me and other people who are preaching a different gospel, preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ. We are the enemy, just like Jesus was the enemy to them. Same thing. That's an enemy. Listen, that's a badge of honor for me, and I wear it proudly. So does Talarico, and that's why they have such an issue with him. But he don't care. Does not care. Doesn't care. We had 100. Susie said, Susie's a former teacher. We had 170 neighborhood schools closed. Yeah, we did. Yes, we did, under Abbott, and I'm telling you why. I'm telling you why. They trying to get, they are dismantling these public schools because they see what the population is, and they see what the population is going to be 10, 15, 20 years from now. So they trying to say they little white kids out of these public schools. They don't care if they have to close 100 in public schools. What for work they care? And if you look at the population of public schools, I can only speak in Duncanville. My friend Renee is on here. She can tell you. I've been in Duncanville. When I moved to Duncanville in 1985, Duncanville was predominantly white. Duncanville now is predominantly Hispanic. Duncanville schools were predominantly white. I think the last statistic I saw, 2% of Duncanville schools were white. The rest of them Hispanic. I told y'all. Yeah. Look, this has been to work for a long time. A long time. And now they're in position to do what they are doing. And then here come a Talarico. Oh, listen, a fly in the ointment. They don't like it. They don't like it. The history of this is inferiority, mediocrity, and fear. It is. But y'all, that's what we're dealing with. That's what we're dealing with. Let me see what Susie said. TEA has a teacher review commission like police. Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Some of these people put a book for banning, and the complainer hasn't read the book. Apparently so. Who would have, listen, Susie, y'all, who would have a problem with Knight? Who would have a problem with an author who wrote a book about his experience during the Holocaust? How did that get on the list to be banned? Y'all, all I can say, y'all, this is affecting my niece and nephew. Yeah. See, y'all, if you don't have kids in school, like you're an empty nester, it's gonna impact, like Sheila said, it's gonna impact your niece, your nephew, it's gonna impact your neighbor, it's gonna impact students for generations to come. Districts taken over by the state. Oh, I didn't know that. Closed libraries. Oh, Susan, what else? They closed libraries and turned them into what? Turn them into what? Let's see. He is speaking of the libraries that are rarely used. Oh, as libraries in most schools. Oh, I didn't know that. Well, I would guess that, I guess students, they don't Listen, like when I was in school in the dark ages, they don't go, do they still check out books in the library? I don't know. Let's see. Night is gut wrenching. They must read. It's so sad. It's sad, y'all. And let me go back to Night, because it was, let me go to this, because it was approved. It was approved, y'all, by the Republican controlled State Board of Education. They just approved it. They approved it as required 8th grade reading beginning in 2030. Beginning in 2030, the same time this Bible curriculum is going to be implemented in 2030. They just approved Night. So, but Night is on Dan Patrick's list of 2,198 books that ought to be banned. Make it make sense, y'all. It don't. You can't. We can't. This, whoever said it, is true. It's about power. It's about control. And that's what they're trying to do. It's crazy. It's absolutely nuts. So, y'all, yeah, it's been an hour. I can't believe it's an hour and 20 minutes, but this has been good. Y'all, but this is the kind of community, and I want y'all, because this is a conversation. This is why I've been telling parents for decades to view public education as secondary or supplementary to your child's education. Y'all, if they get back in it, I just don't know where Texas will be. And now they are bashing the elected officials that practice Islam, yeah, and show a higher moral compass than they do. Okay, that goes back to that question that Talarico was asking. You have a Muslim teacher that's now required to teach the Bible curriculum. Don't you think that teacher would be conflicted between the Quran and the Bible? That Muslim teacher didn't go to school for that. Nor did a Jewish teacher go to school to teach the New Testament. See how crazy this is? That's why this is best left in the home and in the places of worship, whatever that place of worship looks like, or no place of worship at all. And that's the conflict, y'all. And that's why they hate, as I said again, they hate Talarico because he's a fly in the ointment. He's holding his hand up. He go, wait a minute. And there are those of us who are saying, wait a minute, but they don't hear it. But that's where we are. And if people don't vote, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I'm going to be here as the Lord wills, gives me breath, health. I'm going to be here every Thursday explaining this stuff. And I'm thinking about putting together a webinar to have just a conversation like we're having now, but it will be face to face, that y'all will get to ask questions and we'll get to talk about these things before the election, because this is the most important election that I can think of in this state in decades. Because depending upon how this election goes, is going to set the stage for a Texas that none of us with any sense of freedom, liberty, and morality are going to want to live in. And I make no bones about it. I'm 110% behind Talarico because I know what the alternative is. And Paxton is no alternative at all. So, that's where we are, y'all. I thank you so much for being here. Listen, preacher, look, I cuss too much to be a preacher. Preacher, I'm so appalled. I know. I no longer call myself a Christian. I don't either. I call myself a Jesus follower. I do too. Yes, that's what we are. Y'all, and that's y'all. Oh my God. I'm so glad you said that, y'all, because that's what it's coming down to. That's how, if those of us who love the Bible, those of us who are word lovers, y'all know what I mean. If you look at the first century, if you look at where we are in the 21st century, they mirror. Because Jesus came at a time very much like today. And he had to deal with the Robert Jeffries, were the Pharisees. He had to deal with the Franklin Graham, they were the Sadducees. He had to deal with the Sanhedrin, which is the Republican Party. the religious right, I'll put it that way. He had to deal with the same factors that we're dealing with today. And he left us the blueprint on how to do it. That's why I wrote that book, Jesus 160. You can get it on Amazon. Because he left the blueprint for us to show us the way how to deal with these people, because he knew. And when Jesus told us, love one another as I have loved you, because Jesus knew it would come a day in time like today in time now, that we were going to need one another, y'all. And that's what James Talarico is preaching. That's why he goes back all the time. Love one another as you love. That's it. And that's the fulfillment of the law. That's it. Jesus was the fulfillment of the law, the New Testament. See, y'all, this is all mixed up together. But for them, it's about power and control, just like it was with the Pharisees and Sadducees, just like it was with them. Jesus came preaching freedom and love. That's what Talarico is preaching too. That's why I had to let y'all hear it for yourself. So when y'all hear Ted Cruz and when y'all hear these right-wing podcasters saying all these things about Talarico, that he's weird, he's all these things, you will have a point of reference. And that's what I wanted to give to you, a point of reference, to let you just hear it for yourself. And for a Dan Patrick to condemn this boy to hell, it's unconscionable to me. Yeah. Thank y'all. I think such good. Thank you, sis. I love you so much. Somebody want to hug me? Who want to hug me? I'm hugging you back. Because y'all, we know we ain't nothing about love here and truth and community. That's what we're about. Oh, Ophelia, the webinar's a great idea. Thank you. Okay, if y'all want to put in the comments, if y'all want to be part of this community and this webinar that I have been praying about doing, just so people could talk with one another and talk things out and hear from others and hear from me and others that I would bring in with these webinars to do this teaching before November, before we have to vote. I'd be willing to do that. It's something I've been praying about, because God said his people perish, y'all, for lack of knowledge. And y'all have heard me say that before. What that means is ignorance and darkness. He doesn't want us in the dark. He wants us to know. He loves us so much. And now they're bashing the elected officials that practice this on. Oh, okay. Yeah. I will read that. Yeah, they do. Yeah, they are. And that's why. Let's see. I'm trying to get everybody. I worked with Jeffries years ago when he was just Chris Wells' assistant. He's always been a real hard person. He was a horrible person when he was down there in Wichita Falls. Don't y'all remember? When he was a pastor down in Wichita Falls, he got a book. I think he got book bans when he was a pastor down in Wichita Falls. Jeffries go back a long way. And y'all remember Jeffries said he don't care about Trump having all that. He said he wanted the meanest son of a gun he could find. That's what he said. Go Google it. That's what the man said. That's what the pastor said. And that's what they got. Yeah. In Trump. Jeffries was done when endorsing the felon. Yeah. But y'all see, like I say, he been mighty quiet. He been mighty quiet on Paxton. Paxton got him in a quagmire. Hoarding money and stuff that they can't take with them when they die. Yeah, all kinds of stuff. Oh, let me say this. Now, let me say this and I'm going to be through. A lot of people are questioning. Let me see before I say it, because I want to talk about Dolly Parton and I want to talk about Tim Curry. I want to talk about Trump for a minute and what I believe is happening here. Are your points about? Oh yeah, there you. But what I see, people are saying, why did God take the wrong? He took the wrong 80-year-old. He took Dolly Parton. He should have taken Trump. Y'all, let me say this. Number one, God is sovereign. And Dolly Parton, what she represented everything Jesus says we should be and ought to be. Donald Trump is not God, I believe, in looking at how God has done in the past. And I had a professor at DTS. He would always say, what God has done in the past is an indication of what God would do in the future. But he's too creative to do the same thing the same way twice. But if we look at the Bible, and if we look at how God operates when it comes to kings and those who are in authority and those who are rulers, especially evil rulers, and Trump is an evil ruler. I ain't got nothing to do with his politics. He's an evil man. The death of Dolly Parton would not be the same kind of death that Donald Trump is going to have. And I have said this before. Y'all have heard me say it before, and I'm saying it again. Because God is going to make a public spectacle of Donald Trump. I don't believe Donald Trump is just going to quietly slip away when people are saying they want to wake up one day and he's going to be gone. I don't believe that's what's going to happen. I think that Donald Trump is going to suffer and be brought down before the world, for the world to see, because he has not only blasphemed God, but he has placed himself, and others have placed himself in the seat of God, in the very position of God. And if you look at how God has operated in the past, going all the way back to the Old Testament, even up to the New Testament with Herod, you have a pretty good sense of what God is going to do. You don't know how he's going to do it, but God doesn't change. So I believe while people are saying, oh, the Grim Reaper don't know what he's doing and he took the wrong one, no, took the right one. And see, with Dolly Parton, it's such a contrast of evil and good, of darkness and light. Don't miss what God is showing us. Don't miss it. Donald Trump's day is coming. And Donald Trump's day is not going to be, he's going to get to sleep away into eternity. I don't believe that. I don't believe it. As a matter of fact, I'm almost certain that's not it. That's not the case. But in either way, God is so loving and he's so kind. He doesn't want any of us to perish. He doesn't even want Donald Trump to perish. If Donald Trump would repent right now, even seeing the life that Dolly Parton lived, and the life that Dolly Parton lived is causing a lot of people to question their own lives. And how do I want to be remembered? Am I doing good things? As a life well lived. And he even loves the worst of us, including Donald Trump. So he's giving Donald Trump opportunity to repent. And when he doesn't, because I don't believe he will, God is going to bring him down in the most horrific way. I've been saying that for 2 years. And I stick by it. Because I know my father. And I know how he works. And his will is that nobody should perish, even Donald Trump. But if he doesn't repent, he's going to. And it's going to be a very, very, very horrific downfall. I've said it before, and I keep saying it. Not because of anything I know, but because I know my father, and I know his word. And that's how it goes. Yeah. All right, y'all. Let me know if y'all are interested in that webinar. I don't even know what I'm going to call it. It's going to be just us getting together and talking about the issues and talking about the possibilities and what's going to happen if this happens and that's going to happen. What they're planning, why they're planning it, how they've been planning it for decades, and that what we're seeing now just didn't happen overnight in Texas. And it will be to people's peril if they don't vote. And as I've said, please, please, please check your voting record to make sure that you're not one of the 1.2 million that is suspended. If you've moved, anything like that, you're suspended. You're in that 1.2 million. And like I said, the ones that I am most concerned about, because this is going to be a very, very close race. Very close race. And if they can say that close to 3,000 registered voters who are registered voters are non-citizens, then that could make a difference. That could make a big difference. And the counties can only do so much. The counties can only do so much. And what the counties are saying, the county officials are saying that they have discovered that some of these people that Texas is saying are potential non-citizens are really citizens, or they have supplied their citizenship documentation to DPS. And the counties can do only what the counties can do. So we'll see what the state does. But they have been working on this, y'all, for since December, since these voting rolls. Yeah. So please check vote.org. You can go to vote.org. You can go to whatever your county elections office is. You can go there. You can check there. But please check and keep checking, because they're not done at all. And if 1.2 million people, if you're among these 1.2 million and you are suspended, like I said, it doesn't mean you've lost your right to vote. I want you to hear me good on that. You've not lost your right to vote. You've just been suspended in the system. Check your address. But these 3,000, these close to 3,000, they ain't gonna be able to vote. If DPS says that they are non-citizens, even though they are registered voters, that's the thing. That's the thing. And that's what concerns me. And that's what should concern all of us. I'm going to read exact. County officials have discovered that some of those people had already supplied citizenship documentation to DPS. So the Secretary of State is now cross-checking with DPS to make sure that these 2,724 registered voters are citizens. But they've been tagged as being potential non-citizens. And the thing about it, you don't even know if it's you. That's why you got to keep checking. All righty, y'all. I appreciate y'all so much. I love y'all so much. Thanks for being here on Thursday morning. This is a joy for me. It's a ministry for me. I thank you. And yeah, let's, if y'all want to get together and have this conversation and do this webinar thing, this community is a community conversation to talk about this more as we get towards the election. Let's do that. Because y'all, they are pulling out all the stops. And I just ask you, when it comes to all of these things that you're going to hear about Talarico, that's the genesis of it. Because if they can destroy his witness, they will tear down his character. And that's what they're trying to do. But they're starting with his witness and damning him to hell, as Dan Patrick, and calling him blasphemous. Ted Cruz has done that. The right-wing podcasters have done that, all of them. But he's just speaking the truth. And like I said, with Jesus, they said he was Beelzebub, Lord of the Flies, right from Satan. It destroys their narrative, y'all. And that's what Talarico is doing. He's upsetting their narrative because, like I said, he knows public schools and he knows the Bible. And they don't like it, and he challenges them on it. And so they have to make him appear as though he's some kind of freak or some kind of blasphemous, horrible person. But y'all, that's what we're dealing with. And we're gonna do this every Thursday as the Lord wills, and we're gonna come together and have these conversations and talk. And I hope I got yeah, I'm looking in to see. Yeah, it says new comment. Let me see. Trump is Trump is the worst president ever. I don't disagree. Yep. Thank you too. And until next time, y'all. This is informative. Thank you for sharing. Thank you. And thank you for being here. Y'all, thank y'all for being here. This is a joy for me. It really is. And I appreciate you. And if the Lord say the same, we would do this next week. And y'all let me know in the comments if y'all are interested in having that conversation. All right. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.